How many of you have heard this argument back and forth about Jacobson v. Massachusetts? It's trending on Twitter and even on Facebook because people are constantly citing this because some progressive who didn't understand what the ruling meant cited it. I'll explain it to you. Jacobson v. Massachusetts is a case that is used to support the argument for government-mandated injections. I'm not calling them vaccines. It is not a vaccine. I would imagine a vaccine is they're using it synonymously with inoculated or inoculation, and that's not correct. So, Jacobson v. Massachusetts, the precedent was that this guy back in 1905 didn't want to get a smallpox vaccine. And so it was a case that ended up before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court determined that the Massachusetts court was correct and the guy had to go ahead and do it anyway. And so they ordered that he had to do it anyway or pay a $5 fine. Interestingly enough, Jacobson actually never was vaccinated, and he died like 25 years ago. But they said that if he didn't get the vaccine, he had to pay a $5 fine. So this presented as a precedent to allow for government mandated vaccines is super stupidly flawed. And here's why. First and foremost, Jacobson did not push the case. Jacobson v. Massachusetts did not push this mandate, vaccine mandate, or the penalty for it, $14,000, as a condition of employment. It was never pushed that way, number one. Number two, Jacobson v. Massachusetts was about a state's right. In this case, Massachusetts. It was not federal law. And furthermore, number three, it was based on a state law. This whole fight was because of a state law. It did not come from an executive order. Number four, Jacobson placed a very small nominal fine of $5, which today would be $150, and it allowed for an opt-out. Number five, Jacobson versus Massachusetts is entirely anachronistic, especially in these times, considering all of the other court cases that recognize bodily autonomy. It was a stupid, ridiculous ruling. And in fact, it was most recently invoked, ladies and gentlemen, as a way to deny church gatherings in California and New York. Did you know that? When they took that to court, you know what they brought up as citation? Jacobson versus Massachusetts. I remember in a policy class in college learning about Jacobson versus Massachusetts. And I remember when all of that lockdown stuff when all of it was happening with the churches, I remember thinking, I'm familiar with this. And so I went, and it was like way back over a year ago that I looked into this. And it's just shocking to me that this is actually used to justify the vaccines, considering it actually doesn't. It does not at all justify any kind of federal anything. That's why that argument's not going to survive legal scrutiny either. It's a ridiculous, anachronistic ruling. And furthermore, this idea, this law was used, or this ruling was used in 1927 in Buck v. Bell. Buck v. Bell was a case that determined women who were adjudicated mentally unfit could be forcibly sterilized. And in fact, Justice Holmes had said, quote, "The principle that sustains compulsory vaccination is broad enough to cover cutting the fallopian tubes. 3 generations of imbeciles are enough." End quote. Buck v. Bell. Google it. Which brings me back to the progressive male argument, because here you have these progressive males that are telling women to shut up and go ahead and get vaccinated. And yet we're like, hi, can you sexist, knuckle dragging misogynist wait a little bit, at least until we get some kind of study as to whether or not this affects reproductive health? I mean, if it's enough to jack up your menstrual cycle to a ridiculously abnormal degree, more so than any other vaccine study that's ever happened. And I meant the closest thing that came to it was the HPV one. But those, as I said yesterday, the comparisons aren't even actually close. Maybe, I don't know, y'all could just, slow your roll a little bit and maybe wait for some more information to come out instead of trying to force women a la Buck v. Bell to do something that we don't want to do. This is a my body, my choice argument. This is where feminists ought to be getting mad. It's interesting how they're very quiet about this, isn't it? Additionally, to deny from conscientious objectors their constitutional rights, to treat them like they're criminals because they are hesitant over a new vaccine with unclear efficacy that has no long-term studies, it is an affront to our republic. Yes, I would get into my Liberty Armory and my Liberty stash for this. You're damn right I would. So all the people who are trying to cite this don't know what the hell they're talking about, and they should be ridiculed publicly for their pretentiousness, their condescension, and their stupidity. So that's all you need to know. I'll go over it again later so you have it.